This portion of the module is going to discuss specific teaching techniques for introducing and practicing text structure in your classroom. This is a review from a previous section of this module. Because all writing has a purpose, effective writers use several recognizable organizational structures in their writing to help readers understand what's being read. Effective readers recognize and process understanding through these texts. Again, this is a review for us to remember the purpose of teaching text structure. An author uses text structure. We want readers to be able to recognize and process that so they understand the text. I've always enjoyed this comparison. A skilled reader may be compared to an expert cab driver. Cab drivers must know the layout of a city, the patterning of roads, main highways and side streets, the cue system on the roads, like highway marks, road signs, and lights. The important point for our purposes is that cab drivers would not succeed without their detailed knowledge. Much like the expert cab driver, readers who are successful in school somehow acquire a specialized knowledge about the patterning of their texts. Children need more than exposure to exposition. They need to develop understanding of this form. If children are to develop understanding of exposition, teachers must show children how expository text works and how it differs from narrative text. We're going to take a look at some bits of a video. The video is almost 8 minutes long. There will be a link after this within the module if you want to go and watch the whole thing without any breaks in it. This is an elementary teacher showing very young children the difference between fiction and nonfiction, but it demonstrates the explicit nature of working with and teaching text structure to children.
Lily's big day.
So she begins by sharing a fiction book and reads through it, and then she brings out a nonfiction book.
A really big clue that these are going to be different stories. One is going to be real, and one is not going to be real. Put your hand up if you can tell me what's the clue. Then.
One's a photograph and someone draws the other one.
Okay, so one's a photograph, and someone drew the other one.
And she explores the conventions of nonfiction versus fiction with her students.
This story is going to be about real mice. When I open up the two books, there's also something different. What is different about the beginning pages of these two stories? Ty.
One's content and one's not.
So which one has the content?
That one.
This one has the contents. This one just starts the story right away. And a contents tells us the names of the different chapters, sort of. That's going to be in this book. So it tells us what it's going to be all about. We call them subtitles. And the contents also has page numbers. If I keep turning the pages of my nonfiction book, well, I notice the subtitle right here, and there's something I notice right here. Angeli, what's that called?
There's diagram.
This is a diagram. It's a drawing that has labels. It's teaching us all about a mouse. Boys and girls, yesterday we talked about some differences between nonfiction stories and fictional stories. Today you are going to have 3 minutes to look through your nonfiction book, and after 3 minutes you're going to put your hand up and let me know if you noticed any of those features of nonfiction text.
So here she's exploring the access features of nonfiction text. If you remember from our previous section of this module, there was a handout about access features and a video. If these aren't taught, a lot of kids will get them, but some don't have it by the time they reach middle and high school. So don't assume if you're teaching the upper grades that children have had a chance to explicitly learn about these different features of nonfiction text.
I noticed a content.
You have a contents in your nonfiction book, and I'm going to put that right up by the front or the top of the list because that's right on the first page. And the contents two things. The contents tells us the subtitles, page numbers. Can everybody open their books and look to see if you have a contents in the very front, and put your finger on your nose if you have a contents. Excellent. So a lot of nonfiction books have contents. Not all of them, but many of them. What else does your nonfiction book have? Harrison.
Index.
It has an index.
That was mine.
An index is something else that's special in nonfiction. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. That's usually at the back of the book, and we know it's the index because it's... Girls, we've been talking a lot about the features of nonfiction text, and we've made a list of some of those features right behind me. Today, Miss Reeves needs our help in the library. She gave me all of these books, and she wants to sort them into two piles, either a fiction pile or a nonfiction pile. So you're going to know if your book is nonfiction if you check with these features. So I'm going to give you all
And
one
this would
moment
be,
to
at
look
this
through the
level, an
story,
application stage.
make a choice
of the
either it's
teaching.
fiction or nonfiction. And then I'm going to choose you to explain.
So teachers can help students identify text structures in reading as a way to make the text easier to understand. They can also help students use text structures to organize their writing. Back to Brian Camborne. Don't forget about Brian Camborne's model of learning that we talked about in the very first and second modules. If you apply that model to explicitly teaching text structure, there are some things that we want to make sure we do. So we want to provide explicit instruction. We show the students specifically what to do, what the strategies are to work on nonfiction text structure. We want to scaffold instruction. The teacher helps students by providing some clues and supports as they attempt to identify the text structure. And the teacher you saw was doing a great job scaffolding. They did some group work and then small group work and then individual. You want to model the use of strategies. You want to ask focusing questions, and some of those focusing questions can be: how is the text organized? How does the organization of the text help you comprehend the selection? What are the main points of the selection? Could the text be organized in another way? What kind of thinking will be necessary to understand the information in the text? And how would I best display the information after reading? These are the kinds of things you want to model out loud in your own head, your own processing of text, so that it becomes natural for students to do it on their own. You also want to use and create graphic organizers. That's a very important part of getting information into a visual image from the text structure, from the nonfiction text. This 3-minute video is just an overview of some of the steps you can follow when teaching text structures. In addition to helping students understand the text structures of articles, books, websites, and all the other materials you're going to be bringing into your content area teaching, instruction is also needed for any textbooks that you will be using. All of the techniques discussed so far certainly apply to textbooks. Another unique idea specifically designed for textbooks is called text mapping with scrolls. When you finish this overview, you're going to have the website to go explore on your own. I wanted to take you there first and make sure that you could see how to navigate the website, because it can be a little tricky. It's a very plain website. I think it's a very old website. But either here or here, this is the best place to go, the introduction. And this is the overview of text mapping with scrolls. And basically, the concept is that you use long paper scrolls to show the continuity of the individual pages of a textbook. And here are some examples. There's your textbook, and here's what you do with the textbook. And then the students take a look at all the features and how they cross over on pages. And that's something that it very much mimics the website now, the web learning, which it is a scroll. This whole thing, you scroll down. It's not one page at a time. And it helps children see connections across pages that they wouldn't ordinarily see, and also to see how things relate to one another within the textbook chapter. So it's time intensive because you're making photocopies of pages of the textbook, but you wouldn't be doing this for the entire textbook. This is an activity you would do to help children understand how to navigate a textbook that they were using in your class. And then the site gives some examples of how to implement this, how to make the text scroll, how to actually do the mapping on the text scroll. And after this, there will also be 2 very brief videos that show you students actually using text scrolls. And then you'll have a discussion board and talk about this concept. I want to end with this quote: "Active reading requires a learner's inner resources, which include interest, self-confidence, the control of negative feelings and procrastination, and a willingness to take risks." And if you apply that to yourself as a student, or to yourself doing any kind of learning activity, it all applies to us. We need to be interested. We need to believe we can do it. We need to stop ourselves from procrastinating or talking ourselves out of learning. And we need to be willing to take risks so that we can make what we call mistakes, make approximations, and go on and learn. All readers and those who listen to stories are busy. They predict, reflect, interpret, and make connections. The words on the page are cues from the author, but the reader has to contribute much in the way of personal knowledge, associations, and feelings. Students become actively involved in reading when they understand that they have a role in determining meaning. And this is the place we want to get every one of our students to in all of our subjects at every grade level.